Who were the most inhumane and cruel people who were not aptly punished by law? The world has experienced a wide variety of tragic events. Wars, genocides, riots, killings, famines, and other atrocities can be found all over the world. The actual wickedness, on the other hand, is in the minds of those who devised these barbaric procedures. Men who supported criminal activity to an extent that no one else could comprehend it. Their choice caused untold suffering for all of humanity and everything that comes along with it. Here are the most wicked people who have ever been brought into the world but remain unpunished. Number 10. Adolf Hitler, who lived from 1889 to 1945. Adolf Hitler, who served as Chancellor of Germany from 1933 until 1945 and as the Führer of the Nazi Party, was possibly the most intellectual, innovative, and merciless dictator of them all. He held these positions from 1933 until 1945. He bore a significant amount of blame for the Holocaust as well as the Second World War. He was driven by the conviction that Jews were at the heart of every issue and made it his mission to wipe them out. Because of his activities, more than 50 million people lost their lives. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler took his own life by hanging himself in his bunker. It is difficult to believe that he was once a skilled artist and a member of Bohemian culture in the past. Number 9. Joseph Stalin, who lived from 1878 to 1953. Iosif Vissarionovich Stalin ruled the Soviet Union as dictator beginning in 1922 and continuing until he died in 1953. When he was younger, he had a reputation for being a thief and a killer. He ruled the Soviet Union with fear and bloodshed for close to 30 years throughout his reign there. His choices caused a famine that claimed the lives of millions of people. Forget his adversaries, he even murdered the loved ones of those who held him in high regard. More than 1.5 million German women were victimized by him throughout his reign, and he was responsible for the deaths of far over 20 million people overall. In the past, he was quoted as saying, "One death is a tragedy, a million deaths is simply a statistic." In a twist of fate, he was considered for a Nobel Peace Prize nomination in both 1945 and 1948. In 1953, he passed away as a result of a stroke. Number 8. Vlad the Impaler, who lived from 1431 to 1476 or 1477. The name Vlad Dracula was sometimes used to refer to Vlad the Impaler. Because of his terrible disposition and the brutal deeds he committed against the people of Wallachia, where he reigned as prince 3 times between the years 1448 and 1462 and killed approximately 20% of the population, the character of Dracula was based, at least in part, on Vlad the Impaler. He stabbed the victim in the buttocks and continued till the stake emerged through the victim's mouth. Once upon a time, the following sentence appeared in a pamphlet published in Germany. He roasted children, whom he fed to their mothers. And he would lop off the breasts of women and make their husbands eat them as a punishment. After that, he had every one of them impaled. Number 7. Pol Pot, who lived from 1925 to 1998. Pol Pot was the commander of the Cambodian revolutionary group known as the Khmer Rouge. This group was responsible for orchestrating the genocide that occurred in Cambodia. Pol Pot was a totalitarian leader in Cambodia who advocated the annihilation of Cambodian culture to usher in a new era and initiate a new government. He is almost certainly the first individual in all of history to have been given the command to commit mass genocide against his own country. During his tenure as Prime Minister, which lasted from 1976 until 1979, his policies were directly responsible for the deaths of over 2 million people, which represented almost 25% of the total population. He enjoyed keeping the skulls of the individuals he had murdered, and he even went so far as to order the limbs of infants to be pulled off one by one. He passed away due to unavoidable factors. Number 6. Heinrich Himmler, who lived from 1900 to 1945. He was in charge of the SS and was the mastermind behind the so-called final solution to the Jewish question, which entailed the murder of all Jews living in Europe. Himmler had given the order to exterminate around 6 million Jews, 200,000 to 500,000 Russians, and a great number of other people whom the Nazis considered did not deserve to live. It is speculated, but not proven, that Hitler commissioned the manufacture of furniture from the bones and skins of Jewish victims. He killed himself, and the location of his burial is a closely guarded secret. Number 5. Idi Amin, who lived from 1952 to 2003. Idi Amin, who was the chief of army staff at the time, had taken control of Uganda when President Obote was attending a summit in Singapore. President Obote had been absent from the country. He pledged that he would make Uganda prosperous. A week later, though, he announced that he would be running for president of Uganda. He slaughtered people. As ruler from 1971 through 1979, he was responsible for the deaths and torture of around 500,000 people during that time. He passed away due to unavoidable factors. Number 4. Ivan the Horrible lived from 1530 to 1584. Ivan was the first ruler to hold the title of Tsar of Russia. When he was younger, he had the habit of tossing animals off of the highest points of various structures. His mental disorder caused him to have outbursts of wrath, even though he was clever. In one of these, he was responsible for the death of his son and heir to the kingdom. He delighted in severing people's heads, setting them on fire, suffocating them, frying them, blinding them, and disemboweling them. Even in his buddies, he recognized his adversaries. More than 60,000 persons were killed through various forms of torture during the Novgorod massacre. Ivan passed away when he and his friend were engaged in a game of chess. Number 3. Kim Il-sung, who lived from 1912 till 1994. From 1948 until 1972, Kim Jong-sung ruled as the only dictator of North Korea. He was responsible for starting the Korean conflict, which ultimately led to the deaths of 3 million Korean people. The Korean people were coerced and indoctrinated to revere him as a godlike figure. After Sung's passing, his son Kim Jong-il carried on his legacy, and now his grandson Kim Jong-un is doing the same thing as the current dictator of North Korea. Famine, starvation, and execution have been responsible for the deaths of millions of people, and some forms of torture are extremely brutal. North Korea has been subjected to oppression for almost 7 decades, and its current generation is the third in a succession to bear the brunt of the fury and policies of the country's tyrants. Number 2. Nero, 37 to 68. Nero brought chaos to the Roman Empire throughout his reign. He set huge cities on fire, burned, boiled, crucified, and impaled as part of the execution process. It thousands of individuals, and took the lives of every member of his own family. People were stabbed by fire that devastated Rome, but he blamed it on Christians, who were subsequently severely tortured for involvement in the fire. Nero committed himself using an aided death when he realized the uprising would be unsuccessful. Number 1. Maximilien Robespierre, who lived from 1758 until 1794. He was a key figure in the planning and execution of the French Revolution. He fought for a higher quality of life for the people of France when he was a younger leader. But very quickly, he developed an unhealthy fixation on guillotining, which is the practice of beheading someone using a machine that has a large knife blade at the end. He felt that killing was always preferable to forgiving, and during his reign of terror, he was responsible for the deaths of almost 40,000 people in just 10 months. His reign of terror is a well-known aspect of history. He gave the order to attack Vendée, which resulted in the deaths of more than 100,000 troops. Robespierre, who was likewise executed without a trial, met the same fate as his predecessor. Do you like it? Kindly give your valuable response in our comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting and informative videos.